In a world with only hot takes,
Two college friends try to cool down sports media.
join Jack and Jared every week as they tackle the biggest stories in the NFL.
And give the reasonable football analysis you won't hear anywhere else.
Welcome to 710 Sports.
Welcome back to 710 Sports with
Jack
and Jared. It's episode 37. It's a day before the start of the NFL season. We're excited to sort of make our picks for week one, to talk about the big news around the Kansas City Chiefs versus Detroit Lions Thursday night game, as well as make some crazy Hail Mary predictions in our Hail Mary section. But first off, Jack, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Also very excited, of course, which we said in all these episodes, really, but especially now that it is like tomorrow, right? To just tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Got one more work day. It's like Christmas Eve, you know. It definitely has that sort of feeling.
And I tell you what, it is so much easier to get through the week when you know you can watch football on Thursday night, and then you can watch it on Sunday and Sunday night and Monday night
and then Monday.
Yeah,
The
it's
day just becomes looking for the next football game. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's not delay, because our fans, they definitely want to jump right into this Thursday night game and the picks for the opener of the season. But first, let's just say like and subscribe if you haven't already. Check us out on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But once again, Kansas City Chiefs, they are hosting the Lions, obviously former Super Bowl champs from last year, the Chiefs. But the big news, of course, is that Travis Kelce, he did have a sort of a bone bruise on his knee, and he is now questionable for the game, as well as Chris Jones does not have his contract and is still not in the facility and has not practiced. So now knowing that two of their biggest stars, I mean, definitely their biggest defensive star and their second biggest offensive star, their largest weapon on offense besides Mahomes himself, possibly both being out. What do you think is going to happen in this game? Who do you got and why, Jack?
Well, I know we talked about this in our last episode, so I'm not going to delve too much. I'm not going to retread some of that ground. If you haven't seen that, it's still relevant, of course, because the game hasn't happened yet. And in that game, I called the Lions, and I'm going to keep calling the Lions. I called that before Kelce got hurt, but especially with that, I believe he hyperextended his knee in practice, and then what the injury ended up being was a bone bruise, which is very lucky in the sense, because I think it's the same sort of thing that would have been like an ACL tear or something, but it is when it doesn't fully. It's the same like action, but doesn't tear. So, but it's still not good. The indications of that are that he wouldn't play, especially this is week one against an against an NFC team, different conference. Week one, coming off the Super Bowl, they're looking to go back to back. Right, this team is of course looking to go back. With Mahomes, as long as they have that Mahomes, Kelce, I mean Chris Jones not playing, Chris Jones core, they're looking to go back to back. Right, so it would not make sense unless he's really feeling 100% to play Kelce. And then if they're not playing Kelce, did they add much in the offseason? I can't remember. Did they maybe like an offensive tackle or but they didn't. It's not like, oh, yes, of course, the Chiefs just got this massive weapon outside on offense. Of course, they have Mahomes, but now they have two of their biggest stars are not playing. They're not going to have Mahomes play like this is the Super Bowl, right? They're not going to have Mahomes scrambling out, really fighting through contact if he's running. They do not want him hurt, because if he's hurt, then like everyone's gone. They're in the race for the number one pick. I mean, probably not still have Andy Reid, so on, but like that.
The season's blown up if they lose Mahomes.
The season's blown up. Yeah. So they do not want, obviously, to lose Mahomes, but they don't want to hurt. They don't want to risk this bone bruise. He could be back in 2 weeks, maybe. He could be back in a month. He maybe even could play this week. It might be more a play through the pain, but I just don't think it would be worth risking it, especially week one. So I don't think they're going to play him. And then I think the Lions added a lot this offseason. Of course, they had an upward trajectory, a lot of hype towards the end of last season. But I think they made some huge additions with 4 top 50 picks. Might have been like 4 top 40 picks or something. It was something crazy. But like they added a bunch in the draft. They added big in free agency. I think it was with CJ Gardner-Johnson. They add a bunch to this team on both sides of the ball. And I think you're going to throw in the fact that Kelce's going to be hurt. that Kelsey's going to be hurt. It's going to be just Mahomes, who of course is good enough to do it. If this was in the Super Bowl, it might be still tough to pick against the Chiefs, but it's not. Mahomes is not going to be playing as hard, and he shouldn't be in Week 1 of the season with two of their three best players out. So I think the Lions are going to win. I think it'll be close. I at least don't think the Chiefs will cover the spread of, I think, 6.5. I think if they do win, I think it will be by a field goal, that sort of range. But
Sure.
But I'm confident. I think the Lions will win, at least cover the spread.
So I would hope that they cover the spread, because that means it's going to be a close game. And I would like to see that, obviously. But I gotta say that I disagree, and I'm going to break it down to the 2-star players, their likelihood to play, because I would say even if neither of them play, which is definitely a possibility, it's more likely than both of them playing. I would say that even if neither of them play, I still might like Kansas City, but I think there's a good chance Travis Kelce plays, more so than not. He's currently listed as questionable, which would mean a 50-50 go rate usually if they're stated as questionable. So, it's kind of a toss-up, it seems, right now. But I will say that Travis Kelce has not missed a start since his rookie season for injury. That was 10 years ago.
That now.
All right. So, and it's not like he hasn't been banged up before. It's not like, he's an NFL player, right? So we know that this guy will play through certain injuries. He's missed time during games before, and I believe that he sat for buys and stuff, or he sat for week 17s and stuff. But he hasn't missed a start because of injury. And I think he might just play through this one as well. It might make sense if he gets shut down from the top, so I understand that, but I know he's going to want to play. So I think there's a good shot he plays. And you know what? I don't think Jones is going to play because obviously the deal hasn't gotten done yet, and I don't think that they're going to put him in with 0 time of practice. He hasn't been at training camp. So let's not be crazy about that. But I will say, with the Bosa deal just going through, some people say Chris Jones is the top of the market, but I think Bosa's probably the top of the market, in my opinion, at least. And you know what? If he sets the market, maybe Chris Jones can either get where he's at, a little bit above, a little bit below, whatever they might be arguing about between the GM there and Jones himself. Maybe the Bosa deal is an anchor for them to say, okay, this is what you should be getting paid. We're going to make the deal happen. And it might not be that he plays Thursday, but it might be that he's there with the team. And, it's more of a morale thing for everybody to say, you know what, we got the Jones deal done. He's not playing, but he's with us. And with Mahomes, maybe Kelce playing, it adds a certain vibe and energy to the team that otherwise right now it's kind of like, hey, one of our best players, he's not buying in. Or the team, they can't get a deal done with him. They can't get him paid. Or am I going to get paid? What's going on? Right. It's just not good energy. This could push it over the top. So I am going to stick with the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs. And frankly, even if neither of them play, I still like the Chiefs. I like Mahomes. And frankly, I'd like to see him just kind of go kind of free and loose and, make some stars out of these receivers that we don't think that there's a number one receiver on that team, or, think Kadarius Toney or something. I think he could have some flashes, right?
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I personally like Kansas City, although I did like some of the arguments you were making about the Lions, and I am slightly concerned about Eric Bieniemy being gone. But I will say Andy Reid has called the plays the entire time he's been there, I'm pretty sure. I think he maybe passed it off to Eric Bieniemy last year, but Andy Reid can call plays. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. That's a little bit more concerning, but Andy Reid's an offensive guy, so that's what I got. I like the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think those are some good points, especially the fact that Kelce, especially because this is an injury that people can play through. It's not, and I don't think I don't think a risk of re-aggravating something. The extra injury risk, because it's really a play through the pain thing, and painkillers, so on. The real sort of injury risk would be, well, if it's still hurt, if it's painful, you're going to be playing around it, and if you're playing around it, you might be making yourself vulnerable to other things. The thing, it's especially if he's the type of guy who who will consistently play through injuries, these sort of lighter injuries, I think he'll at least get some snaps. Whether he's, I think he'll be starting. Whether he's gonna, be, of course, I don't think he'd be at full capacity. But that is a good point that he might be in that. And combining that with, if imagine they do get the Chris Jones deal done one of these next couple of days. Actually, the game's tomorrow, but imagine they get the Chris Jones deal done tomorrow before the game. Team hears about it in the locker room before the game, and Travis Kelce's going to be there playing through injury. That's a real storybook sort of moment, right? If the morale boosting sort of moment,
right?
That would be tough. The sort of morale booster, even if they're still not going to have Kelce at 100%, and Chris Jones not playing, it still will have the morale. I think would be a pretty huge thing.
And like you said, it might not be that Kelce's out there playing all the snaps. It's an excellent point, but he might be out there for some of them. And he might not be 100%. What if he's 80%? He's probably at 80% still one of the best tight ends in the league. And if he's going to be drawing double teams out there, if that's what the Lions decide that they want to do defensively, then he's going to draw the double teams if he's on the field, regardless if he's at 80 or 100%, which opens up things in the for the wide receivers in the passing game and for Mahomes. So we'll see. Obviously, we're all rooting for a close game, and certainly a fun one, and like we talked about, I think it was definitely intentional by the NFL to put two predominantly better offensive teams to open up the season to get people excited to get the teams scoring. But we're going to transition to some just general pick talk for week one. We're not going to labor on all the picks because frankly some of them are, we agree, and some of them seem obvious. We will be talking about
aren't that interesting.
just aren't that interesting, really. and maybe they will be. Hopefully, they will be, and we'll talk about them next week. But we're mostly going to talk about games that we disagree on, and I guess the start with that. Maybe do we want to talk about Bengals Browns in the 1 o'clock hour?
I think we should, because I saw some news about this. Maybe you didn't, because I know the reason I could see you for calling the Browns, because if Joe Burrow isn't playing, then I would take the Browns too. He's a big enough. The team's got some talent on it, but I'd probably take the Browns without Joe Burrow. It's tough. He's a big part of the team, but I think Joe Burrow is playing. I think I saw this. Okay. It's relatively recent news. Frankly, it might have been after you made the pick, but I think Joe Burrow is playing.
So a big part of this pick was, you go ahead and fact check that, because the idea on my side is that there's a couple of things. We'll start with the Joe Burrow thing because you're fact checking it. But, if Joe Burrow's not playing, they talked about him being day to day. That's what was coming out recently from the coach. Zach Taylor said, "Hey, it's going to be day to day with Joe Burrow." And frankly, what that means to me is that I'd be surprised if the day before they make a decision like, "Hey, we think you're ready," or "Hey, he says I think I'm ready." I think it would make sense for him to just still wait it out, be 100% for a couple of days for the next game if it is truly day to day. Now, are you saying that they're going to go ahead and play him, or what is the news that you're?
I'm ready to go. Burrow said in his first public comment since he suffered blah blah. They didn't. Okay, he looks good, Taylor. I think I see the day-to-day comment. I think he participated fully in practice today. I think he fully participated in practice today and said, "I'm ready to go." So I think he's still in the injury report. I'm sure we'll find out exactly. There's still it's still up to chance. But if I was a betting man and I was betting whether he was playing or not, I'd probably bet he's playing.
It's interesting. Because I only saw part of that. I didn't see Joe
based
Burrow
on the injury.
speaking.
There is. I mean, you're still right. There is that aspect of, well, maybe he shouldn't play. For that, this is just week one. You can get him to 100%, unless he is. I mean, maybe they're saying he is, but because even if he wasn't, he would say he's ready to go.
Especially with the history with him having the leg issue in his rookie year. I would think that they would want to be 100% sure. Joe Burrow, I'm sure, will want to play if he wants to play. But the fact that if he was going to, I just have to imagine if he was going to play that they would, they would come out and say, yeah, he's ready, he's going to play. unless they already know that and they're just trying to trick out the Browns. I don't know. I will say that besides the Joe Burrow thing, the Browns are 8-2 in the last 5 years against Cincinnati. They are straight up. That's with Joe Burrow, without Joe Burrow. That's when the Browns, had Baker Mayfield. But, obviously Cincinnati before Joe Burrow got there a couple of years ago, not necessarily a storied franchise, and he was hurt in his rookie year. But 8-2 over 5 years, Cleveland's got something on Cincinnati. They match up well with them, and whether it's going to be Joe Burrow, maybe not, coming off of an injury, or some backup that they have over there, you still got Myles Garrett on the other side. And, I like that matchup. So I'm taking the Browns. What do you got?
Yeah, I see. I mean, for me, it's really just I think the Bengals are just overall a better team. I didn't know that 8-2 over 5 years. I didn't know. I think even with that, I still think if Joe Burrow is playing, I think they're enough of a better team. If you're Joe Burrow, you're worried about injury history. You're used to you take a lot of sacks and you have to go against Myles Garrett. Would not be fun. But I'm just fairly I'm pretty cold on the Browns. Like that's because some of their best players are. I mean, I say getting older. I don't mean like that. Like what Myles Garrett's like 27 maybe or something, 28. He's not like by no stretch of the words. By no stretch of the words, he's not getting old, but he's getting older.
Sure.
Nick Chubb as a running back's getting older. Kareem Hunt, I don't know if he's playing. He's off the team. I think he might be. I think he's a free agent. I guess they have Amari Cooper is on the team, right? I guess they have him, and of course Deshaun Watson. But Deshaun Watson has not really shown much yet. I didn't watch the preseason. Maybe he showed off in preseason, but he hasn't shown off a whole bunch. Now this would be the time he started showing off a whole bunch. But it's still week one. Even if he's going to turn it on this year, I don't. It's not necessarily week one against a Bengals defense that often can outperform. I know you're doubtful somewhat of the level of talent. I think if someone's outperforming the talent, the defense is normally decent. The Bengals have a decent defense at least. So I think that's why I think that it's more maybe me being cold on the Browns. I don't think. I mean, if they don't have Joe Burrow, I think that's a much tougher thing if he ends up not playing. But I'm pretty sure he's playing, so that's why I'm calling him.
That's fair, and you know what? Probably a good pick, especially if Joe Burrow's playing. It seems like we're kind of hedging, both of us, based off of whether we think he is playing. I will say, though, I also don't have much faith in the Browns, but he
would be reserved, I'm sure, Burrow.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit I'm not hot on the Bengals either. That's the thing. I think that they're going to come in third in that division. I like the Ravens and the Steelers in that division. So to this, I'm saying, I think the Cleveland and Cincinnati are closer to each other, maybe just both bad, right? Whereas you see that gap there, which is fair. We'll see what actually happens. Before we get out of the segment, maybe a couple of different sort of discrepancies and picks that we've got. We can go to the Monday night game, Bills-Jets. I like the Bills personally in this one. I don't know. I have to see it to believe it with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, both individually and now together, right? You've got the Jets organization that, frankly, has been just awful for years. And, I mean, certainly the last 5 years.
A decade, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe before that.
They haven't won a playoff game since then.
Right, but this is the best quarterback they've had since Favre, obviously. But Aaron Rodgers also had his struggles last year, and certainly in the playoffs. We're not there yet.
Especially week one last year, I think it was. I think he did very poorly.
I need to see it to believe it. I'm not hot on the Bills either, but I think that they're a good team, and I think that they'll win this game. What do you think?
Yeah, I called the Jets kind of wacky. I know. I had actually called the Bills for our divisional ranking, playoff picture sort of stuff in previous weeks, but changed my mind in this game. Half the reason I chose this is because you chose the Bills, and I wanted to disagree on this game. Just for content. No, but I mean, I mean, the other piece of it for me is I think I have a feeling, and I talked about it last episode, that I think the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, I think that's going to work out. And part of it's also the flip side is the Bills as a team. I definitely am colder on them. I definitely see the points, especially regular season. A lot of Josh Allen turnovers. A lot of Josh Allen playing risky, I would say. Really taking hits he shouldn't be taking. against a pretty good Jets defense as well, which rips over both of those in terms of taking hits and everything. I still don't know how much, other than Stephon Diggs, I don't feel like there's a lot of receiving talent on that team. Gabe Davis had that amazing playoff game, but like 2 years ago. But I don't think he had a especially great season last year. I don't know who's their tight end, Dawson Knox or something.
And that relationship between Diggs and Josh Allen maybe a little turbulent. They say so, not
there's
anymore,
maybe turbulent
not so
there.
much, but I don't know.
Maybe they have a lot of their secondary was hurt last year for a lot of last year, so of course they'll likely be more, what's the word, recovered, healed, of course, obviously, because the next season. But I'd still be worried, especially on those sorts of positions that can often be speed dependent, about coming off of major injuries, like some of the season-ending sort of injuries they were facing. I'd still be worried about the effects of that. I think they lost one of their linebackers. I think Matt Milano is on the team, but the other linebacker whose name I don't remember. I think he left in the offseason to somewhere. Would also be a bit. So that's why it's more for me. I'm projecting a slight collapse for the Bills. I could still easily see them winning this game, though. This is still 100% a game they win, but.
Yeah, it's prime time, and hopefully that's another good one for this week. Obviously,
Aaron's gotta love prime. Imagine just how great he'd feel. First game on the Jets media, right? As well, New York City, New York media on the Jets prime time Monday night. He's got to be dreaming about that, right? He loves being in the news. He's got to be thinking imagine if I win. Imagine and against the poster child. Yeah, against the Bills. The heirs apparent, right? Mr. January, all this stuff. Yeah,
maybe there's some extra drive there. You make some good points in our last minute here. What do you think about this Atlanta Falcons Carolina Panthers game? A possible game for the division here. These juggernauts in the NFC South
coming out of week.
Quickly, who do you got and why?
I got the Falcons, because I think some of the players that they have, the players that got in the draft, their team is going to be more ready week one. I think so. Adding Bijan, I think Bijan's going to be able to perform week one, right? Running back, so on. I'm expecting him to have a good season. A lot of the run block, a lot of the team is going to be built around him, and stuff like that. And I just think he'll do well. Whereas Bryce Young might take some adjusting time. It's still a quarterback coming in week one. It's different than a star running back coming in week one. And I think that's the adjustment time for him might make that tough.
Okay, so that's a great point. And as we close here, I will simply ask, the reason I take the Panthers is because I don't know who the Atlanta quarterback is. I don't know who's starting. Do you know who it is? And if you throw out a name, tell me the percentage you believe that he's actually starting, like how certain you are. Because I know that there's quarterbacks in that roster. But
Desmond Riddler, and it's a 99% chance he's starting. Chance he's good, significantly lower than that. Of course, he was like a third-round pick or something in 2022 or 2021 or so. I don't think he's good at he didn't get to play much last year, if at all, because Marcus Mariota was playing. They were playing Marcus Mariota for maybe they might have had him. I don't know if he started any games. This other guy.
Well, listen, I got my doubts. That's all I'm going to say. I'm taking the Panthers.
That's fair.
We'll go through, how we did in terms of our picks next week when we do them again.
Yeah.
Just go through our records and see what we did. We did have a lot of overlap, obviously, but we'll probably talk about a couple more of these games in the next Hail Mary segment. So make sure you like and subscribe so that you see that video and everything. So, yeah. And so our last segment here for the pod is sort of our Hail Mary segment. We're going to be hitting on sort of maybe a little bit out there predictions for week one and even possibly beyond that if we want to for the whole season. But things that we know are possibly a long shot, but we'd like to take that shot into the end zone. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and we'll just open it right up here. I'm taking the Ravens against the Texans, but this is the largest spread of the weekend, and people think that this is a lock. Okay, I do not think this is a lock. Okay, I think that the strength of the Ravens have been their defense, and I see Lamar Jackson, he's going to have a lot of weapons, but he was also injured last year. So I think it might take a little bit for that offense to get going. And I think that the strength of the Texans is going to be the defense, especially with D'Amico Ryans now there. And I think that they're going to be ready to go. I think he's going to have them ready to go. And I think it's going to be a slugfest, and I think it's going to be close. I definitely would say that the Texans are going to cover. So, I'm not going to go out and actually pick them because of, the offensive situation with the Texans. But I think it's going to be close.
Yeah. No, that is it's a pretty big spread. I did see that. I think that's fair, and I think that's one thing. The Texans defense I think will be very, very fun to watch with D'Amico Ryans, but also they drafted Derek Stingley Jr. I think 3rd overall last year, higher than Sauce Gardner. He was picked over Sauce Gardner, but there are a bunch of stuff there why he didn't have as good of a season, so on for different scheme reasons. But I think they drafted a safety with like the 34th pick, like whatever their equivalent pick of the second round. Like they added big in the defense. It'd be 2 years, like a year ago, and this past draft they traded up to pick 2 and 3. They traded up with the Cardinals or whatever they traded to pick Will Anderson Jr. on the defensive line. So I think that team will have a lot of young stars, like a lot of young dudes to watch with a great defensive-minded coach, at least a great defensive coordinator. I guess we'll see how he is as a coach. But great defensive dude, D'Amico Ryans. Right. I think that over the course, whether it's all clicks in this game or just throughout the season, I think it'll be very fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you got for your first Hail Mary?
What do I have for my first Hail Mary? Mine are mostly on the season, not the first week.
Sure.
But I can make this one about the first week actually, and that's that I think Anthony Richardson might have the best rookie season of the quarterbacks, the best quarterback rookie season, and I got to rationalize this. Reason one, I think the Colts have some offensive pieces. The line was not amazing last year, but they still have Quentin Nelson. That's it. Whatever the guard, they have a really good guard, which for a mobile quarterback that could be important. And I think the fact that his dual threat capabilities, I think will make him, whether he's a better quarterback over years, I don't know. But in this rookie season, I think he'll be able to rely a lot with the help of his legs. And they got some decent receivers there. Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's junior. But no, he's not. Michael Pittman, whatever. They drafted some dude. He seemed decent, like not Scotty Miller, but like another white receiver. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's not that common. And he was picked highly. He was picked like 45th pick or something in the second round. He was picked highly. He played pretty well when Matt Ryan was passing to him. They have him. I mean, hopefully they have Jonathan Taylor at some point this season.
Maybe.
Imagine if they do. If he comes in some point this season, add him. Defense isn't amazing, but I think that offensively, I think the dual threat capability will help more than they traded the Cardinals. The Panthers traded their best receiver, right? They traded him to the
Chicago.
Bears as part of that trade. Yeah, to Chicago. So there may not be as much room to work with. And Bryce Young is not a mobile quarterback. He's kind of small too. He's probably taller than me, but he's kind of small for a quarterback. I could see that taking some time, wanting more on the offense potentially. Similar with CJ Stroud, isn't known for being a mobile quarterback, and the Texans don't have a lot. I think the Colts have potentially better receiving talent, at least better receivers, and being mobile. I think will make Anthony Richardson look like he's having a better season. Then not just look like have a better season.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm going to say I'm most excited to watch him. But honestly, I said it during the draft, but I think CJ Stroud throws the best ball. And that's not necessarily going to translate based off of where he landed and everything else it takes to be a quarterback. But I kind of like him with the Texans. So we'll see what happens. Next Hail Mary, you wanted to talk about it. Steelers. I got Steelers beating the 49ers. I think the spread's only like 2.5 or 3 points, so it's not a crazy Hail Mary. But honestly, San Francisco, they're going to be starting a QB, Brock Purdy, who's coming off of an injury on the throwing, with the elbow, and frankly, I like Purdy, and I definitely think he should be starting for the 49ers, but I'm not so sure if I'm completely sold on that run. We'll see what happens. Kill's also banged up, as well as of 2 weeks ago, both their starting kickers were banged up. Now, supposedly the rookie that yes, I know. Because you know why? Because it's the 49ers. That's why. You ask how? Yeah, they had 2 kickers in the roster, both hurt as of 2 weeks ago. Now, as an update on that, the rookie kicker is supposedly going to play, but supposedly he's been hurt this week, right? He's not at 100%, and they brought in a guy on the practice squad, a third kicker, as sort of a just in case, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're dealing with right now, and what I think will be sort of a grinded out defensive game that could indeed come down to a field goal. In fact, the spread is that, right? So,
Yeah.
Okay, maybe this guy does play, but is he 100%? If it came down to a 55-yard field goal, is he going to hit it? I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of weapons for San Francisco, but it's a horrible thing to say, but they're injury prone, right? And Kittle is banged up currently right now. He's probably going to play. He's questionable, but still. And also Bosa. He's been holding out, right? He very well could play because he just got his deal. But, I think it's easier for defensive guys to just jump in and, hey, go get the QB. But it's still going to be – he's going to go without a whole training camp. So if you look at the Steelers, Cam Hayward is questionable. He's a little bit banged up. But besides that, there's no major other injuries, and they're not known to have these horrific injuries that the 49ers have. So I'm taking the Steelers against the 49ers.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good way to think about the game, especially thinking of it like that, kicking injuries and what could very likely be a defensive battle. And yes, with Kittle being hurt as well, a big part of that team, of course. I think it's interesting, especially as well. I'll say very quickly. Because a lot of people may not have seen the videos where you've mentioned this in the past, like with last year I remember you delved into the stats that the 49ers have historically been disproportionately injury prone. It's not just like our memories thinking, they lost so many quarterbacks last year. It's not just like that. Jimmy G always gets hurt. They historically have seemed to get more injuries than other teams for whatever reason. Has been a thing that's happened. And having potentially 2 kicking injuries is definitely a piece of that.
What are the chances? I mean, come on now.
But yeah, so for
what do you got for your Hail Mary?
For my next Hail Mary, again, a seasonal one, the Patriots making the playoffs. And the reason I'm specifically saying this, because I know I said it last episode, I know it's, whatever, but the reason I'm saying it is because I saw power rankings, like a collection of power rankings, aggregation. There's the word, fancy word, of different power rankings from different sites and so on. And it had the Patriots at like 22 or something, or like 21 overall. And I was like, that can't be right. Look at some of these teams above them. Patriots would definitely be, and I was thinking that. And I think the Patriots, their schedule has games that could be like, if they're a bad team, if they're just straight up a bad team, if they're gonna be as bad as 21st or 22nd, like many people have them, right? Many of these ranking sites, like sites, not ranking sites, they're like normal sports sites, have them. Then they'll lose some of these games. They'll lose to the Chargers, who they play this season. They'll lose to maybe they play the Saints. I think they play the Saints. Teams like that. Yeah, sure. Like if they're that bad, but they could also, if they're decent, if they're at the level even of the past 2 years, and I think they'll be better. But if they're at the level of the past 2 years, I think they win those games. And I think that their schedule has fewer like disastrous games than it looks like. Yeah, they play the Eagles week 1. They play the Chiefs this season. They have to play, of course, the AFC East twice each. But other than that, there's not that many hard games in the schedule. There's games like the Chargers and the Steelers, which I know you're hot on the Steelers, but there aren't. It's not like, okay, they're playing the Ravens and the Bengals and the Chiefs and the Eagles and the Cowboys, and I think they do play the Cowboys, but like it's not as disastrous as it may seem. If they can be at the level of even last year, I think they make the playoffs. It's tough to say that because I have to look at every single game for every single team, but I'm pretty like they're going to have a good record. I think they'll be over 500, and I think they'll be in the playoffs. 7 seed, right? I'll say 6 or 7 seed, but I don't think they're going to win the division. But I think they'll be in push. I think their schedule's easier than it looks, and I think they've improved massively getting Matt Patricia out of the locker room.
That's very interesting. I think that is a pretty Hail Mary
It is a Hail Mary.
type of a prediction because, frankly, when I look at the schedule, I think it looks hard, right? So now you did say
No.
you did say it seems like it looks hard, but it's
It
not as
seems like it looks
disastrous
hard.
as people are saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just I'm pretty sure that they have a pretty tough schedule because they're in the NFC East or they're in the AFC East and they're also getting the NFC East because those are the best divisions in football last year. So, but fair point. I'm going to close us out here with the last Hail Mary. I took the Raiders against the Broncos. I know you've got the Broncos here in Week 1, but I'm anticipating Jimmy G having an excellent game and leading the Raiders to a win against the Broncos. This is twofold, right? Now, yes, I was hot on the Raiders last year, and they burned me, right? But I was also cold on Denver, and I was right about that, okay? So I'm going to continue to be hot and cold on those teams. You look at the Raiders against the 49ers while they were literally scorching the earth in Week 17 last year with Brock Purdy going 7-1, not losing until the playoffs, and 49ers being essentially Super Bowl favorites, right? Going into the playoffs. Oakland took the 49ers to overtime, 37-34, and that was after Derek Carr sat and a guy named Jarrett Stidham came in. All right. And he basically led them to OT and then threw an interception that basically lost the game. But he had 3 TDs, 300 yards passing, two ints. But this was after Derek Carr got sat, and the team is roughly the same. Yes, they lost Waller, but they still have Josh Jacobs, and more importantly, they have Devontae Adams, who Stidham threw 2 TDs to in that game. Now, I think Jimmy G, not an incredible quarterback, is an upgrade from Jared Stidham, and I think that combination.
Yeah.
I think that combination with him and McDaniels from New England might just work. Not for the season. Don't be crazy, but for this game. All right, for this game, especially against whatever's going on with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, all that crap that's going on in Denver, and I will just say that we know that Denver's defense was great last year. They've been great, but we've had Hackett come in, who was an offensive coach. Now we have Sean Payton come in, who's an offensive coach. How many offensive head coaches can you cycle through and still remain a great defensive team? I wonder. I really do wonder. Yeah. So that's my Hail Mary. I got Jimmy G and the Raiders for this week.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. I think Jimmy G will be able to work around a lot with players like Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. I think they complement his skill set very well and what he's good at, I think. And I mean, as to why I picked the Broncos, I picked the Broncos because, like you said, I think their defense will be close enough to what it was, especially against a team that I don't think is going to do very well on the season like the Raiders. I know season versus this game are different things, but I think that their defense has still kept most of its pieces, and I don't think has lost too much. Since last year or anything. I don't think they've lost anything. I forget, but either way. Oh, they did trade. They traded someone to the Dolphins during the season last year. Yeah.
Right.
Which they got a first-round pick for and so on. But that's the pick they traded for Sean Payton, I think. But anyway, I think, yeah. But I think ESPN or whatever Fox, wherever Sean Payton was, Fox. I think Fox, Sean Payton. I think Russell Wilson. Going to be trying to buy back his legacy, trying to bring his legacy back. I think he still had good years. So he had some good years at Seattle. Of course, that team was the defense and so on. Pete Carroll. Of course, there's a lot of cooks in that kitchen. So it wasn't just Russ cooking over there. But I think he still has the potential to be at least average quarterback. I think he has potential to be an average quarterback, and I think the Raiders. I'm just cold on. I think really it's more about me being cold on the Raiders and warm enough on the Broncos defense. I think that's why for me. But.
I will say that the Broncos defense scares me, but if you ask Russell Wilson, he's just going to say, let's ride. And speaking of, why don't we all just let's ride with 710 Sports. Make sure that you like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we're basically going to close it out, episode 37. Tomorrow we watch the opener of the game. Obviously, everyone is excited. We've talked about it for multiple episodes now, but we will be back Sunday with some instant reactions to the Sunday night games or the Sunday games, and then we'll be back next week to kind of go through the whole week and then talk about predictions for next week. Yeah, anything else, Jack?
Nope, nothing else.
All right, well, you know what that means. This is 710 Sports with
Jack.
and Jared. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.